Ready. Go ahead and call this evening's regular council meeting to order. Please note that the council chambers have reopened to the public. Meetings will continue to be live streamed and available for public viewing on YouTube. As part of the virtual public participation, if you have any questions regarding items on the agenda, please submit them by email to mail@ektwp.ca. Questions received prior to the meeting will be addressed during the public question period, which is limited to 15 minutes. We begin this regular council meeting by acknowledging that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Algonquin First People. We do so respecting both the land and the Indigenous people who continue to walk with us through this world. Our first item of business is the adoption of the agenda. The motion is that the regular meeting of council agenda dated June 23rd, 2025 be adopted as amended. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Brayton, seconded by Councillor Osterhoff. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you. We'll do a roll call before we, I'll do interest and then we'll do the roll call. Does any member have a pecuniary interest with regards to any item on tonight's agenda? Okay, I'll note that at the council table here this evening, we have Councillors Downey, Osterhoff, Smith, and Brayton. I have heard from Councillor Renault. She is on her way and hopes to join the meeting in progress. And we do have regrets from Councillor Eady, and we're joined by 3 members of our staff, our Director of Finance, our CAO, and our Deputy Clerk. So with that, I will move on to the adoption of the minutes. The motion is that the regular meeting of council minutes dated June 9th, 2025 be adopted. Mover and seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Daniel. Any corrections, questions, or comments regarding that set of minutes? Okay, I'll call the question then. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you. Oh, very good. I was prepared that we may have to shift our delegation coming a little bit later, but I see that she's joined us. So we've got one more item and then we'll get to our delegation. I do have in front of me a motion that the committee of the whole minutes dated June 16th, 2025 be adopted. If I could get a mover and seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Brayton, seconded by Councillor Osterhoff. Any comments, questions, or concerns around that set of minutes? Oh, sorry, to our CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship. There was a couple of questions that came out of that meeting. One with respect to the volunteer policy, and council were looking for staff to include some kind of reference to contractors and how contractors could be integrated into the policy. I've sent a memo out to council, but what staff are recommending is that rather than having a whole part around contractors, that we simply exclude contractors from the policy. And so what we're proposing to include in it is that professional contractors or companies supporting township proper projects or initiatives by providing in-kind or non-monetary donations of their time and services are not subject to this policy. The in-kind work and activities of these individuals will be covered by their own insurance policies and workplace safety and insurance.
Yep, very good. Okay, thank you.
The second item was related to the New Dublin garage. There was a request by the council to have identified where the $15,000 that staff were looking to put towards a concept plans and estimates of where that could be funded from. There are two reserves that the finance director has identified. One of which is the Strategic Initiatives Reserve, which has current balance of $846,057. There's $40,000 which has been allocated of that in the 2025 budget, and the Roads Reserve, which has a balance of $222,210, which includes $100,000 added to this year to cover potential debt repayments. Staff are recommending that we use the Roads Reserve to fund that study.
Yeah, just a quick question to our Director of Finance, since she's with us. I'm guessing that rationale is based on the fact that we probably are not even going to get into construction financing at the level that we anticipated, so we probably won't even use the full 100,000, or maybe not.
We may. I mean, submitted the application. I'm just waiting to hear back that we're all clear and we can borrow when we need to. No construction has started, so chances are we probably aren't going to get into that 100,000 too far. But on top of that, there was a little bit in there that was put in from the year before. It was about 60,000. And then there is one item in there that didn't get purchased, which was a water tank for the truck that got put back in there. So there's $15,000 in there for sure to use for this purpose.
Right, thanks for that. Counselor Downey?
Not sure if this is the place to bring it up or ask it, but it does have to do with that building. And I'm just wondering, at some point, should we be putting some sort of a budget constraint on, you know, if I know they want to go out for 2 sets of drawings, one set of drawings to fix up and possibly add some bays on, and another set of drawings to go new. But we haven't really give them any parameters of what there would be an appetite for to spend or borrow. So is there any place where we can have a discussion around that, or how are we gonna figure that out?
Well, turn to staff. I guess my thought is it's an interesting chicken and egg situation. It's probably easier to take things out than it is to add them in. I suspect we would incur more incremental costs if we said, okay, well, now, you know, how much to add 2 more bays to that drawing. But does staff have any thoughts as to when we would have an opportunity to have that type of discussion?
So staff in putting together, or at least in going and engaging the consultants, are going to be looking at making sure that we have a facility that we need and that we require. We're not looking to build something big and new, big and beyond what we need. We're looking for what we require to deliver the service and the service levels that consumers set. I guess we could have that conversation prior to going out to tender.
I would think one approach would be, given the discussion that council already had, or the committee already had around this item. I would hope that the consultants would be aware that the very rough figures that we were given seemed out of whack to us. And that what they come back with would be, I won't say bare minimum, but not the Taj Mahal. And as I say, I suspect it's going to be easier to trim out and to have that conversation once we actually have a decent starting line, rather than presuppose a starting line and then not realize that we interfered with the process. So would it satisfy you if we get to a starting line and then trim if necessary?
Well, not really, because I think that once staff does go to figure out what they want, they go to a consultant. You know, like they had in mind $8 to $12 million, which I really don't think this township can afford. So like, we need to, I think, come up with some sort of an area where they could look, and when they discuss it with somebody that's going to make some drawings up, they would have an idea how much a square foot, or how big they want to go, how many doors, you know, kind of have an idea. Because if they come back to us with a set of drawings that's completely way out past, what are you going to do? You got to throw them out.
Councilor Reagan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I, for one, will not be voting for any budget money until we find out how much it's gonna cost. Which way we're gonna go.
Sure. Yes,
That's
exactly.
for sure.
Well, and that's exactly what these drawings are supposed to do. You can't really have a conversation around which way until you know what both of those ways look like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what we're talking about.
What is gonna have to happen before we get into budget and figuring out how much money we're gonna spend is we gotta know how much we're gonna spend each way.
So I think if I recall the report that we had in front of us the last time, there was a fair amount of detail in terms of what the existing building lacked. and what the retrofits would be. So I think we can take that list and say, all right, well, in terms of, you know, the HVAC and the oil separators and you know, the ventilation being appropriate, that type of thing. Those are sort of minimum requirements of the new building. I suspect what we're really talking about is the square footage / number of bays. So is that really what you're getting at, Councillor Down?
That and a final dollar figure, because if I'm gonna go build a building, I know that if I have $1 million in my pocket and I can't spend any more than that,
Mhm.
that my building's not gonna cost more than $1 million. And that's how most people would approach it. They wouldn't go out and say, I want this building, and then they come back and it's $6 million. You know, it's just the two things don't talk to each other.
Okay, Councillor Osterhout?
I appreciate how Councillor Downey is approaching this, and I have some similar concerns. I was sort of blown away with the last meeting, the numbers, but really. And I'll just say, my perception is, it was frustrating that it seemed like we're not on the same page with staff. I want to be on the same team.
Mhm.
And I think if we had each had a target that were, even at this stage, a target, we'd be better off, and we wouldn't have the tug of war with staff. Like I want to avoid that part, because that's not always a healthy thing. And I'm still concerned what's going to happen.
So give me just a moment here, because I think I'm gonna suggest. Yeah, all right, so what I'm gonna do is, why don't we park that for a moment? Receive the minutes. There are motions coming out of the minutes, and one of them is around this specific topic. Might be more appropriate to continue on the discussion around that particular motion rather than around the minutes themselves.
Sure.
The minutes reflect what actually happened, and
Okay.
then we can deal with the topics as they come out. Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Okay, any other discussion or corrections or concerns regarding the rest of the minutes? Okay, so I'll go ahead and call a question to receive those then. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you. Now, we have a delegation here. We have a number of motions that would normally come out of that set of minutes. But in deference to our auditor's valuable time, would council mind setting these motions aside? We'll deal with our audit and then come back to the motions. Would that be acceptable? Okay, all right, fair enough. So then we will momentarily set all of the resulting motions aside and move on then to section 6, which is for our delegations. And so we have Lori Huber from here from KPMG with us to walk us through her presentation from our 2024 audit.
Wonderful. Well, that's a very warm welcome, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Council. It's my pleasure to be here before you tonight to walk you through the highlights of our audit for the year ended December 31, 2024. I think there were 2 items included in your package tonight, one being our audit findings report, the second one being your financial statements proper. What I've done, consistent with previous years, is combine some of the financial highlights from the financial statements in our audit report findings. And so with that, I'll stick to that one document. But of course, as always, if there's any questions on the financial statements themselves, certainly happy to take those as well. So I will start. Hopefully you've got a copy of the report in front of you. I'll walk you through certainly page by page, but it is a long report. I'll stop on what I think are likely the most meaningful to share with you. And of course, if there's anything otherwise, please feel free to ask as well as we go. So where we are today with respect to the audit is we are essentially.
I'm just going to pause you for a moment while we resolve a small technical issue at our end. We're just trying to get the report up here on screen.
Not a problem.
Were you wanting to have control of your report, Lori, or are you just gonna speak to it as if council has it in front of them?
That sounds good. So I can just call it the page numbers. That works for me just fine.
Okay. All right, thanks. Yep.
No problem.
Great.
Okay, so if we go to page number 5, it should say status at the top of the page. That shares with you where we are today with respect to the audit. Essentially, we are complete, save for having the conversation here tonight with yourselves, recognizing you will ultimately take responsibility and approve the financial statements. That will really be the completion of our audit, whereupon we will be able to release our audit report in final. My screen is still changing. Are you seeing it okay? on your screen, the report?
Yep, we're just,
Okay.
we've got a copy of your presentation here and we're just getting synced up with where you are. You were on
There we
the
go.
status stand.
There we go. So if we
Okay.
take ourselves to page number 6, page number 6 should say financial statement highlights. So this is really the first piece of the financial statements for the year. What you see before you is your statement of financial position, otherwise known as your balance sheet. So it articulates the total assets and total liabilities of the organization as at the end of each of the years, December 2024 and 2023. So what I would say generally when you take a look at a balance sheet, you sort of jump to the middle of the page, taking a look at one of the key financial indicators, which I think is somewhat a segue into the conversation you were just having, which is your net financial assets. So you can see there has been a fairly significant reduction in your net financial assets year over year, going from 1.8 million down to just over 400,000. As we look to the Y, as we look at the top of the page, you will see obviously cash in the bank is obviously key in terms of the financial sustainability of the organization. You can see that cash did decline year over year from 4.2 million to 2.1. We will see that a little bit later on as we get lower on this page. Essentially, the highlight there in terms of cash this year was that cash in the bank was utilized to make investments in capital assets. So that was really the primary driver in terms of the cash reduction. You will see here, and you will see a little bit later on in our slide, conversation around taxes receivable. So just as a reminder to the group, taxes receivable are those taxes that should have been paid that remain outstanding related to taxes for either fiscal 2024 or any years previous that have not yet been collected, including any penalties and interest. So those have increased as well year over year, going from 1.3 million to 1.6, and that is obviously an impact on the cash balance as well. When you look at your total financial liabilities, those have declined though year over year. Last year, accounts payable and accrued liabilities were quite high, sitting at about 1.5 million. That is often an indicator of timing. Last year, there were some capital purchases that hadn't yet been paid. So that's another driver to the cash in the bank as well. So those amounts were paid. This is a more normal year for fiscal 2024, but again, still a sizable amount yet to be paid at the end of the year. As we work our way down through these categories, asset retirement obligations would have been a highlight sitting here a year ago. That was a new standard that was required to be adopted. So it will carry on sort of business as usual, save for any remeasurements throughout the course of the year related to inflation, making sure that that liability will keep pace essentially with market rates for those remediations that will be required at some point in the future. The other piece that I know council always tends to be interested in is your long-term liabilities. So you can see they have decreased year over year, which is really a function of the regular repayments that were made on loans throughout the course of the year, going from 2 million in the previous year to 1.9. Below the line, if you will, in terms of what is a non-financial asset, that's where we see the significant investment that has been made over the course of time in the tangible capital assets. So the net book value is the total cost less the total accumulated amortization. That's what net book value is. It has increased year over year from 24.9 to 26.3 million. There were in-year additions of about 3.2 million across the group in terms of roads and vehicles primarily. And then the annual charge for amortization was about 1.8 million. Other pieces of non-financial assets, which tend to be very much insignificant in the grand scheme of things, are the prepaid expenses in the inventory. So once you take your net financial assets, you add your non-financial assets, that's where we land at what we call accumulated municipal equity. So that has increased year over year, and that's very much a function of the in-year reported surplus that we'll see a little bit later. But that's also where you will see your reserve and reserve funds that sit in there as a component of that piece that will be also articulated on a few later slides. So if we keep going, the next slide is just another way to put into perspective those investments that have been made over the course of time into tangible capital assets. It's always nice to see things in pictures instead of numbers, but you can certainly get a good sense of where those investments have been made, with certainly the primary piece being the roads, comprising about 44% of the net book value of that total tangible capital asset. The next slide is where we get into some of the trending, which I always find helpful to compare yourself to yourself, and then certainly compare yourself to others as well, which is certainly what we do, as we have the benefit of auditing a number of other local municipalities. So looking back over 5 years, I would say certainly probably not the trend that you would have hoped to see. You can see there's certainly been a downward decline in those reserve funds over the course of the last 5 years, really being a function of the need to use these funds as sources of funds to offset other expenses that have been incurred through the last fiscal year, the few fiscal years. To put it into more perspective, if we go to the next slide, one of the KPIs that the province does each and every year when municipalities submit their annual financial information return, which is another way to describe annual financial statements, they will come up with KPIs that they believe are meaningful in terms of the health of a municipality. So one of the ones that they do is taking a look at your reserve and reserve funds as a percentage of your operating expenses. They would suggest anything greater than 20% would be green or good. I would say that certainly not trending in the right direction, I would say over the course of the last 5 years. However, you still are above 20%. But this is where I would say from a broader context view, I would say for the size of your municipality, I certainly would suggest to you that a 20% mark, somewhere between the 20 and 30% mark, would be relatively low compared to some of your peer organizations as well. So I'll just put that out there. And perhaps there is a question or a comment. I don't know, Mr. Mayor, is there questions on that one, or shall I continue?
Yeah, let's pause for a moment. There may be questions. I don't know if anybody else has one. I've got one if nobody else does. Again, not seeing any hands at this point. So I certainly acknowledge the trend line, don't dispute it, and I take your advice well. What I'm curious about is I didn't really find a trend line that I could compare in terms of investment in assets. So if we were pulling from our reserves for operations and that type of thing, that would be very concerning. But my sense from the numbers that I was able to crunch is that we're investing in our infrastructure at a faster rate than we're using up reserves. Is that a fair assessment of the numbers overall?
Yeah, so let me just take a look at your note, note number 12 in your financial statements. So if I look at your total cost, so you're actually sitting at about 50%. So I would say, so what I mean by that, if you look in note number 12, it will share with you the aggregate total cost against the accumulated amortization. So you're running at about a 50% rate. So you're essentially halfway through the life of your assets. That is one of the pieces that would be meaningful to then compare across your peers. I would certainly say there are some municipalities out there that are well less than 50%. So that would make your comment certainly very much valid. But I would say there's some out there that are over 50 as well, but certainly there are some certainly less than 50.
Okay, all right, thanks. That's helpful. All the other questions around here? Okay, I guess you're clear to go on.
Okay, I thought that one might spark further conversation. Okay, page number 10.
I think it would have it if it had been below 20%. I think there would have been a long conversation.
Yes. Okay, so if we take a look at your tax arrears as a percentage of your current levy, this is another interesting one as well. And so as you can see, the ministry would say anything less than 10% would be a good thing. You can see as well for 2024, getting closer to that 10% mark. Certainly there has been some reduction over the course of the last 3 years. But again, certainly less than the 10%, but hovering very close to the 10%. So that's certainly something that the team I know is very much mindful to make sure that they stay on top of those tax arrears and ideally convert those arrears sitting on the balance sheet into cash. I was just on another council presentation actually right before this one, and that was very much a topic of conversation. You know, is it timing? Is it a sign of the economy? You know, what is the market doing? And again, I think that's going to be something to be mindful moving forward in the world that we all now live and play in. So
I'm going to pause you right there because there seems to be some interest around this slide for sure. So I saw Councillor Downey first, and then we've got at least one more. Go ahead, Councillor Downey.
Well, it's actually it's the previous slide. It just clicked. So compared to other municipalities, you say that, you know, a healthy reserve account is 20% or more. So is there anywhere where you can compare the amount of debt that that particular township carries and how it relates to your reserves? Is there some sort of a something that accountants look at for that?
Yeah, so I would say some would argue that this KPI from the province is fairly antiquated. I won't get into that conversation. What I would say is that for municipalities of your similar size, I would say this number tends to hover where you were in 2020. 2020, 2021, it tends to be well north of the 50% mark. I would say most municipalities also have a little bit of debt. Some smaller ones don't. But again, we could go back and find some comparators and pull out the data based on the financial information returns that municipalities supply. Unfortunately, I couldn't get that for you just yet for 2024 because they all wouldn't be submitted, but we certainly could go back and do some digging on 2023 if that would be of interest.
I just wondered if, if your reserves are low, maybe that is a signal that maybe your debt load is low, but that was kind of what I was trying to see if there's something there.
I wouldn't say that's necessarily true across the board.
No.
Okay, Councillor Ostrov?
Thank you. You mentioned that when it comes to the tax arrears as percentage of current levy that you discussed with staff, some reasons why it's possible that the bar is up. Were there any conclusions as to where they are? Like, can I ask why they're up, the arrears, and why do you think we're in that position?
Yeah, so perhaps maybe I'll make a few introductory remarks and then ask the treasurer if she would like to speak as well. This is a point in time. We see this a lot lately, certainly with supplementaries and their timing. If they are towards the end of the year, they aren't necessarily payable and due, so they will be collected subsequent to the end of the year. And it is a snapshot, unfortunately, at December 31. But perhaps, I don't know, treasurer, would you like to speak to this as well in terms of the update and where things are at now?
Sure. To Councillor Oosterhoff. There's a number of reasons. I mean, we could be more, we need to get a little more aggressive, I think, in the collection and sending out letters and enforcing tax sales. It's a tough job, and it's not one of the fun parts for staff to send those letters out and talk to people about their issues. There's the economy right now is not in a spot where we really and want to be that aggressive, but we kind of have to. So I have been working with our tax collector, and we will be sending out some letters. As for the end of the year, yes, absolutely. The supplementals went out. We don't get them. Some of them, MPAC sends them to us in November. So then we have a whack of additional assessments for the building permits that happened all year, and we have to send them all out at Christmas time. Another fun time, but we don't really have a choice. So we get those on the books, and then we have all these outstanding taxes because they've just been billed in November. That could be part of it as well, depending on the year.
Okay, then the period of time between January now, have you noticed anything different or not?
It just goes along. We balance every month. I don't have on the top of my head what the outstanding taxes are at this point in time. But
Thank you.
we are working on it.
Okay, all right, I don't see anybody else, so you can continue on.
Wonderful. We'll take us to page number 11, which is the second most significant component, I would say, of the financial statement. So this is your statement of operations, which highlights the total revenues and the total expenses. And it's meant to marry up also the budget that council would have approved at the start of the year, on a financial reporting basis that would be consistent with what is required under public sector accounting standards as we report the columns 2024 and 2023. So if we cut right to the bottom, you can see in terms of the budget with respect to annual surplus, the budget was created with a surplus of 2.3 million. You can see the actual surplus that was achieved in 2024 was just over 200,000. And again, an improvement from 2023, where there was actually a annual deficit. So if we look at the top of the page in terms of the total revenue, I've given you some of the highlights on the right-hand side relative to the more significant variances year over year. And certainly I won't go through each of those in detail, but I would say at a high level, revenue was fairly consistent, certainly very much consistent with what was budgeted. However, on the expenses side, you can see dramatic change between budget and actual, specifically in the transportation services line. Relative to the previous year, however, though the total expenses have declined. However, I think many of you would recall there were certainly some one-time expenses in the 2023 fiscal year, specifically related to salaries and benefits that were driving those costs to be higher than anticipated. Does anyone have any questions on this page before we continue on?
Well,
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor.
sorry,
Yeah,
do we know what those, just quickly, what those transportation costs increases were?
Sure. Christine, did you want to speak to that?
Nice. Sorry, through you to Councillor. I did do a report at the end of the year, or the beginning of this year, that outlined all of the discrepancies. Some of it was in equipment repairs, some of it was the overages in the gravel, some of it was, and it was all laid out in that report. I don't have them all on the top of my head, but that's what.
I forget what was all on there,
Yeah.
so I kind of just wondered, it kind of lays it out a little differently here, so I wondered if it was just an easy answer, but I guess so.
No, I have to go back to it.
It's sprinkled throughout a number of categories.
Any other questions? I have one for you, Lori. It shows up a number of times, not surprisingly. That's sort of the nature of financial statements, but might as well deal with it on this slide. I was really surprised to see that the audit showed an annual surplus, because when we were doing our 2025 budget, we dealt with quite a deficit. And then later on, when I take a look at the financial statements, you know, there's umpteen times where this roughly $15,000 shows up as a surplus, and then all of a sudden there's a $230,000 negative in one of the detailed financial reports as well. So can you speak to the surplus position, because that's a pleasant surprise, but I think it's a red herring.
Absolutely. It's difficult to read and understand these things sometimes. If I were to take you to note number 14 of the financial statements themselves, which is page number 22, it will break out for you specifically the starting point of 214,892 that you see here, which being the net revenue. Then it will add back all of the adjustments to get you back to your budget. So unfortunately, this is what we call sort of a PSAS financial statement, and then the note reconciliation will get you back to the language that I think most of you are accustomed to in terms of how you budget. If you were to jump there into note 14, it will tell you there was an in-year decrease in operating surplus of 1.4 million. And it gets you there from the 214,000. So things like capital expenditures, as an example, don't show up here, but we know that you've made those investments and they require the use of cash. So that's really the biggest reconciling item to get you between the two. Of course, amortization is another piece that will offset the in-year capital additions. And then also any of the other items like inventory, repayment of long-term debt, those are reconciling items as well. I think note 14 will be able to do it for you, but it is certainly confusing at first blush.
Okay, and then so when I reference these numbers back to our FIRs, when I take a look at the 2023 FIR, I can see clearly that 112,380 listed as a deficit in the FIR, and so I guess I'm anticipating that in the 2024 FIR, we're going to see 214 surplus. We won't see that 230 deficit the way that we think about it.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. All right, I don't see
Okay,
any others, so keep going.
Sure. The next slide actually is just another wheel in terms of, instead of by department, this shares with you where the dollars have gone from an expenditure point of view in terms of the individual categories versus department. And I know one of the items that tends to be of interest to councils would be your salaries, wages, and benefits. So you can see there for fiscal 2024, that percentage is at about 35%, which I would say is generally fairly average for most municipalities. Next slide gets us into some of the audit speak, which I won't spend a lot of time on, other than to say, unlike 2023, where there was a lot of change and a lot of significance to the financial statements, there were new standard changes that were required to be adopted. However, fortunately, there was very little impact on the financial statements. So again, the team has certainly done a great job to make sure that they were staying on top of all of this change, but did not have an impact on your financial statements this year. The next couple of slides get into a little bit of detail in terms of what we call materiality. So for the benefit of the group, as we all know, we don't look at 100% of the transactions that flow through the financial statements. At the start of any audit, we set what we call a level of materiality and audit using that level of materiality, as it really drives the level of testing and the amount of detail that we do. So we did increase our materiality on the next slide. You will see on page number 15 of our report. We took it from the previous year of 250,000 up to 300,000. We can go anywhere between 2 and 3%. Generally for municipal governments, we tend to get closer to the 3% mark, certainly for smaller municipalities. So that led us to 300,000 this year. And the reason why is because your benchmarks that you see on the right-hand side there in terms of either total revenues or total expenses have increased year over year. It is a group audit, so there are components that get included in the financial statements, like the library, but again, not uniquely different from the previous year. I will speed up, I promise. Page number 16 gives you a little bit of insight in terms of our audit. It has not changed. It continues to be a risk-based audit, looking at the financial statements, trying to identify where we believe there's a greater risk of material misstatement occurring. Something that likely jumps out to you on this page is the presumed risk of fraud, not unique to your corporation whatsoever, included in any and all financial statement audits in Canada for a number of years now. Each and every year, your external auditors are required to do specific procedures to make sure that this presumed risk of fraud related to management's ability to override controls is reduced to an acceptably low level. So you will see lots of detail on the subsequent slide in terms of the work that we've done, but really the message here this evening is to say that there's certainly nothing that was uncovered through the course of those audit procedures to bring to your attention.
And I'm just going to interrupt for a second, Lori. This is primarily for the benefit of any members of the public who may be watching now or in the future. I'm going to offer a description and then tell me if I'm off the mark, but I think
Sure.
I'm accurate in this. The problem is, if people want to see that rating go way down, the only way that we could do that is to staff way up and have another 20 people in our organization and the administration to create enough firewalls and separation of responsibilities and duties and authorizations. And so I don't think they want their taxes going up by what it would take to make this rating go down. It's just the nature of the size of our organization. Is that a fair picture?
I wish I could say yes. Unfortunately, it is not. So you could have 200
Okay.
people in your organization and we would not be allowed to change that presumed risk rating. It's automatically deemed to be significant because it's a risk of fraud.
Oh, I see. Okay, fair enough. So even with more people and more separation, there would still be the same level of risk.
That's correct. That's correct.
And-
And that's not something that we set. That's something that the standard setters set for us. It's not even our own view of the world. It's automatically deemed to be significant. So unfortunately, there's absolutely nothing that could change that risk rating.
Okay, and so everybody in the municipal sector is in the same boat.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right. Well, even that clarity is useful. So thanks for that.
Wonderful. So the next slide takes us into the books and records themselves that were provided to us for audit. So as I said earlier, our group materiality, we're on slide number 21, was set at 300,000 for 2024. So what that meant as we were going through all of the financial statement line items, completing our audit procedures, to the extent we identified any differences in the accounts in excess of 15,000, that was our threshold, if you will, to have a conversation with the team. You can see here on this slide, we have identified certain uncorrected items. Uncorrected means that they were not incorporated into the draft financial statements that are part of your package. However, the accumulation of those items we'll see on the next slide, which is page number 22, amount to $69,000 as an impact to your in-year reported annual surplus. That 69,000 is certainly far less than our overall level of materiality, being 300. So the fact that they are not corrected has not impacted our audit report, and we will still be able to issue a clean audit report in that respect. We did identify other items that have been corrected, and if you are interested, we will see them in a minute in the back of our report, sitting in Appendix 1B as part of the management representation letter that they will provide to us upon completion of our audit. Page number 24 is a good reminder. We often
I'll pause you for just a moment, Lori, Councillor
Sure.
Young.
The uncorrected misstatements, is that just for the year 2024?
Yes, that is. So that's a great question. I don't know if you're an accountant or an auditor by trade, but that is a good question. That is only the current year. To the extent we might have identified any uncorrected items from the previous year, 2023, that would roll over and impact 2024, those would be included as well. But this is very much a fulsome picture, and they do, in this instance, only relate to 2024.
Okay.
And is the intention, like, is there a reason why we would leave them uncorrected, or is the intention that these will get corrected at some point?
So the first one specifically relates to the new revenue recognition policy that was required to be adopted. I would say it's an estimate based on the types of the revenue streams. I think that will be revisited in future years now that there is further clarity on that piece and the impacts, specifically related to matters related to building and the types of performance criteria related to that revenue recognition. The second one I would say is unique. Typically, you don't tend to see items that are not reconciled on your bank reconciliation. So it is less than our posting threshold of 15,000, but we wanted to include it simply because it's our judgment, it's our report, and the fact that the bank was out, if you will, by that amount, we wanted to flag it. I know it's certainly on the mind of the treasurer, and I would suggest that one at the very least should be remedied as you go into fiscal 2025.
Okay, all right, thanks. All right, I think we're all clear. You can keep going.
Perfect, excellent. I love the engaging conversation. It's good. Page number 24 gives you a little bit of insight in terms of the other parts of an audit that don't necessarily get the same level of scrutiny as the numbers themselves, but we are required as part of an audit to sit down with the team and understand the systems, processes, and controls that culminate into the financial reporting system, specifically related to internal controls. If we thought there was a significant deficiency in internal controls, and interestingly enough, we have made that determination more often than you would probably think in municipal governments of late, but certainly in your case, based on the work that we did through our audit in the current year, we have not made that determination. As part of a byproduct, if you will, of an audit, we do reserve the right to share with the team management letter points in terms of areas of best practice or internal controls. If they weren't of a significant item, but should be alerted through the course of the audit, that's how we communicate to the team in this instance. And the thing that would be on that letter this year specifically is related to that bank reconciliation. As your auditor, we are required to be independent. We have not provided any non-audit services that might be thought to encroach on that independence. So certainly confirming our independence here tonight, which will enable us to be able to opine on your financial statements, which takes me really to the final piece of tonight's presentation, which is on page number 28, Appendix 1A at the top of the page. So it is included in your financial statements and included here as well. It is a clean audit opinion. In our view, we believe the financial statements do present fairly in all material respects the financial activities for the year ended December 31, 2024. The report is lengthy, but it is a standard audit report in Canada, and it does articulate the responsibilities of management who prepare the statements, your own being those charged with governance and exercising your oversight for the financial reporting process, along with our own as your external auditor. The balance of the items in our report are really meant to be more informational items, not necessarily reflective of the audit per se for 2024. So perhaps this is a great place to pause and welcome any additional questions that the group might have.
Okay, anybody have any more questions of Lori? I have one overarching one for you, Lori. So,
Sure.
and it's from memory. So I think, in really rough numbers to make the math easy, an overall budget of $11 million, a final reconciled deficit of 230,000. So that's about 2%, away from budget. So given that you do a number of audits in the sector, how does that compare to the performance of other municipalities or even in the private sector? Is a 2% variance a decent performance? Or and recognizing nobody likes deficits, or we would much rather be 5% out on the surplus side. I recognize that, but given that it's happened, I'm just looking for a little bit of comparison.
Yeah, so I would say that variance to budget is good. However, what I would also say to you, though, in our experience, certainly in municipal governments, is that you want that annual surplus to be higher because that's what's going to be able to be a significant component of the funding that you will ultimately likely want to do in your tangible capital assets, as an example, or repayment of debt. So I would say for a municipality of your size, I would suggest that the annual surplus is quite small. However, that it's not a comment that I can make in isolation. Just like reserve and reserve funds, when reserve and reserve funds are high, I will make the comment that it's high, but it really sort of depends on your long-term financial plan and the things that you sort of have in the pipeline. I would say the same around the surplus, but I would say typically speaking, we do tend to see richer surpluses in any given year to certainly, in your case, start to replenish some of those reserves as well.
Yeah, certainly. And I guess I was looking more at I don't know what the correct term is, but the actual $230,000 deficit, was a variance out of an $11 million budget. And so that's a 2% variance admittedly in the wrong direction. But I just didn't know, how that compares. Nobody likes that performance.
That would be
Right?
good. That would be good. That variance to budget, yes, would be very well rated.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that. Any other questions? Okay. I guess if you have any more for us, you're clear. Otherwise, well, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very, very much. I always appreciate the opportunity to come and share what we've seen and what we've done, and I appreciate your engagement here tonight.
Okay, great.
Take care.
Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.
Thanks.
All righty. So for the benefit of Councillor Renault, who has managed to join us in progress, welcome. We got to receiving the committee of the whole minutes, and then because of timing and a discussion that started to ensue, we parked all of the resulting resolutions coming out of the committee of the whole. And so that's where we're going to resume now, is with the first motion coming out of committee of the whole minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Sorry on this today.
No, that's fine. So you really haven't missed very much at all as far as that's concerned. All right, so resuming then at that point. So the first resolution coming out of the committee of the whole minutes is as follows. The council directs staff to engage a consultant to prepare preliminary concept plans and estimates for council review to an upset limit of $15,000 as presented in report B-25-07 during the June 16th, 2025 committee of the whole meeting. So if I can get a mover and seconder to get that on the floor, moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Brayton. So there's a little bit of discussion that started to sprout out of the committee of the whole minutes around, do we want to give some guardrails and parameters around those plans so that we don't end up paying $15,000 for Taj Mahal plans when we know we can't afford a Taj Mahal. So that's a real synopsis of what cropped up. But I suggested that around this motion might be the more appropriate place to have that discussion. So I'll open the floor. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't disagree with some of the comments made by my colleagues around the table. As council, we never really had a full discussion with staff in regards to if it was a new building and what we were really looking at to give us a real good concept of approximate cost. We had the result of a previous engineer report, gave us all the deficiencies and an estimated cost to refurbish, I'll call it, the existing location, but not to build new. Besides, I figure that was blown out of the water as far as council was concerned. So I don't, like I said, I don't disagree with some of the comments. We were all flabbergasted with a figure of 8 to whatever it was million. Plus
8 to 12, I
8
think.
to 12 million in a building. And I don't think we can sit around here and say, oh yeah, let's go for it. Because we really don't know what we want. And like you said, we're gonna spend 15,000 to have someone to design us some plans, but we don't know what this plan should be as a new build. So I do believe that we should have a good conversation with staff, just like a committee, whole working session just on that. Because I don't think, you know, even the low cost of 8 million is still way too much money, as most of the people here know. We built some fire halls in this township, and the last one only cost us 2.2 million. And someone was basing that on, so that's like a 4-bay garage or something like that. So, you know, it's easy in this, as a former staff person from municipality, it's easy to sit back and say, oh yeah, I want this, but is council willing at that target and that target dollar? As Councillor Dowling stated, and Oostraw, if we said, okay, our dollar amount to spend is going to be this, well, and for example, well, give us a plan what that's going to be, and then, you know what, if we have to, we'll scale back. I don't want, like you said, Taj Mahal, we're not talking about Taj Mahal, but we do know there's some health and safety risks to what we have presently. And yes, that building is 50 years old, and it's lived its life. And I think we gotta do something to improve operations and to also improve the staff working in those operations. So I do think there should be a target number, but I think we all agreed that 8 million was way too much. Based on my previous profession, like I wouldn't go any more than 6 million. But you know, if you're looking at square, but the thing is, there's a lot of assets within that asset that presently you do not have. That's gonna cost us, and this is what I'm saying, that we need to sit down and figure out what we really need in that building. And go from there. Like, we can sit here and throw figures up, but I think we all agree that 8 million was way too much. But if you're looking at a building and you're saying we're gonna build a building, and we're gonna put a target of, say, 250 or 300,000 per square foot, well, then be it. But I think we need to have a discussion of really looking at as a municipality for a new build.
Okay, Councillor Brayden.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. $8 million is too much, $6 million is too much. There's a difference between what we need and what we want. And we have the last say, I guess, in this project. We should have anyway. And I don't think it's up to me to spend $8 million or $6 million of this taxpayers' money in a little community that at one time I remember that the works truck was a 1947 International, and the sander was the 2 men stood in the back of it with the round pointed shovels and throwing sand in it. And we've came a long way from then to now, and I don't want to go back to them times, but jeepers creepers, like some of these old farmers are roll over in their grave talking that kind of money. And just talking, 8 million is nothing, 6 million or 5 million, oh no, that's all right. Well, that's not my wheelhouse. And I think Dan is right, we've gotta know. We've gotta know what we want and what we can afford, and we gotta know what the price is before we even start into it. Because I'm not going in blind. This is quite a, and you gotta remember that we have. Mortgage on a fire hall and a new salt dome. And the north end. So we gotta pay for that too. So. I think that the music isn't just. Loud enough for the quarter that you're spending to get the music. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Ostrov?
I guess it's more of the same, but I can appreciate the necessity to improve the quality of the current building. It's old, it's done, obsolete. How we got it in that rough shape, I don't know, but this discussion has to also be in line with the financial department's contribution to the discussion. What can we afford? It was mentioned. Our total income, I think you alluded earlier, 11 million. I understand that, but really 7 million. Our Elizabethtown operating budget, 7 million. So they're talking a building that's our whole year's income. And I think we have to figure out between the two of us too, like what debt can we cash flow? Is it $3 million we can cash flow for 5-10 years? Or is it, no, we have to figure that out. I need to know that before I approve any budget on a proposal from staff on this building, whether it's 1.5 million or 4 million or, you know, so it was just too big of a number without any groundwork done. And we have to, I don't know if there's such a sort of thing as a strategic plan that we could do together. That's not the only building the township owns that could use money. You know, but if we do 6 million of that locks everything else away for 10 years. Is that the right thing? Like, should we assess all our properties and say, okay, which is first, second, or third? And more than all of a sudden, this one's on top of the list for some reason, but maybe not for everybody.
And what you're talking about, just before I go on to the next speaker, is the facilities assessment that we did have done. 2019, that was all the facilities in the entire township and gave engineering recommendations and you know, that was the condition assessment at the time. And we did chip away at some of those things that were more public facing. So a number of things in our parks and so on got dealt with. They either got demolished and replaced or fixed up or what have you. And it just happens to be that this is a big ticket item and it's an inward facing facility rather than an outward facing facility. So what you talk about does exist.
Okay.
And I'll point you to it, and I know that you'll spend a number of nights
Yep.
going through it.
I would like
That
to
was
see that.
before your time.
Yep.
But it does exist, and we are on that journey, whether it looks like it or not, we're on that journey. Councillor Renaud?
Yes, and I'm kind of glad to hear that we're talking new. Because in my thinking, repairing that building would be throwing good money after bad. I mean, the trucks can't even, the newer trucks, are having a hard time getting in the doors. So that's kind of, but if I remember correctly from last week, that 8 to 10 million was kind of sort of based on my view, but that's a garage and the roads and the fire hall. Okay. So if we just put up a fire hall in Toledo for 1 million, whatever, why would the public works garage cost us more? Because that's got a lot of stuff in there that, of course, a works garage doesn't need. It doesn't need the meeting rooms. It doesn't need a lot of the stuff that's there. So that space could be truck base. I'm just trying to figure why there's such a huge variance in price.
You're not wrong about your comments about the needs, but I can put it this way, I don't think you're necessarily 100% right either, because there are things that a garage needs that a fire hall doesn't have. So I think it more than washes out when you consider the type of work that's done in there, and the cost involved in putting those assets and those features into that building. I think the garage ends up costing more than a fire hall. They both have similar ventilation concerns, for instance, but there's oil separation and you know, what are they going to have a hoist or not, and those types of things. None of that exists in a fire hall. So I think they're two totally different animals. We just need to keep that in mind.
Okay, I was more thinking building itself.
Yeah.
But I mean. They've it's got 6 bays in Toledo?
Yes.
And how many were they looking for?
Well, so anecdotally, I think they were looking at 12.
What?
That's what they wanted. Whether that's what they need or not is a different story. We were talking about, all the equipment park
I
outside.
think it was 8, wasn't it?
Well, they said, I recall it being that they would consider 8 to be a minimum and 12 would allow
Yeah,
more
but we
equipment
have
to be held inside.
6 now, they wanted 2 more than that, right?
Yes,
Yeah, so I think they wanted 8
minimum, yeah.
minimum, yeah.
But if you build it as a modular type thing that you could, in years going, you could add to it if you have it laid out in the right manner. I don't
Sure.
know, but.
Yep. Councillor Downey?
Well, there's two types of buildings out there. There's pre-engineered steel buildings, which, they're already engineered and they do allow you to add on. Because, this stuff is built in a factory, it's engineered, comes to site and it's all bolted together. And then there's the other type of building where you put the steel up, you design it, you cut it, everything is done custom for a more of a custom approach, depending if you have a factory. But that, a pre-engineered building, which is what that is, that's a Butler building.
Yeah.
Butler might even still be in business for all I know, I don't know, but. It seems to me that pre-engineered is more suited to a public works garage. And you can add a separate area for offices. I don't think the garage itself needs to be air conditioned, but the offices and the lunchroom and the bathroom and things like that would probably need air conditioning. Those types of things I believe need to be discussed.
Okay, Councillor Mel?
So this 15,000, could we get a quote for that, a quote for custom, like, he's right, why do we need a custom? Bill, I understood why we needed it for the fire hall, because they had things they needed. But could we get quotes at least? Get.
So this is going in a direction that I'm a little bit more comfortable with. I completely understand what Councillor Downey was getting at. I didn't understand how we could arbitrarily preconceive a number and say, okay, here's your pigeonhole, now fit a building into it. I view this a little bit like what we went through with the education process for the road surface treatments and so on, where I think we need to get educated. Now, because of your work, Councillor Downey, you may already have this basis, but I don't think as a body, council has the fundamental understanding of, the bare minimum with all the things that you need, like the lunchroom and the washrooms and so on, and 2 bays would be this. And then every extra pair of bays costs that. I don't think the body has that fundamental understanding. So to pick an arbitrary number would be basically throwing a dart at the wall. So I was confused as to how that would work and be an appropriate process. But this discussion around, well, why don't we look at what's available in terms of pre-engineering and get a better understanding of what features and what do you need versus what you want. That's different in my mind than arbitrarily picking a number and saying, okay, go work with that. So I'm very comfortable having that type of discussion. I just don't see how that preconceived number would work without everybody having that same understanding. Councillor Brayton?
Yeah, well, don't you think that we would need to know how much money we're gonna have to spend, first of all? And we could figure out what kind of a building that would fit into them figures. Like I think we're just throwing numbers at the wall right now, and then nothing's for certain, this or that or nothing else. Like we'd go on forever discussing it this way. But I think that we've got to have numbers, dollars and cents. And what we want. Can we afford it? Yes. Can we not afford it? No. Okay, well, let's go from A to B then. But we got to figure all this stuff out. We just can't sit here and, yeah, you want this and I want that and somebody else wants something else.
And
you'll never get anywhere.
so I'm going to pass it over to our CEO, but just so that you understand that the appetite that you have right now for that information, we need to know what it's going to cost, because you're not going to vote until you know what kind of money is involved and that type of thing. That, in large part, is exactly what the $15,000 is supposed to get us. It's supposed to get us, here are the 2 realistic price tags for the 2 approaches.
Yep.
All right.
Let's get it.
Okay, do it to our CAO.
That's,
Thank you, your worship. Interesting conversation, and I'm glad we're having it. There was a comment made earlier about staff and council getting together to talk about planning what they want or what was viable. And I think that's probably a very good idea. What I think we could do maybe to inform that in staff during the committee of the whole meeting, referenced a couple of other municipalities in the local area that have had projects done. And I think that would be helpful to inform some of that. So if staff could go back and look at what was built, when it was built, what was built, how many bays there were, what additional things, and what the price tag was. It'll give us a little bit of an understanding of where other municipalities have spent money and how much they've spent and what they've got for that. That then we can inform, well, what do we think we need? Staff will tell you this is, this is what we will need as a bare minimum to operate this. But that can at least inform that decision making around what we can both really, what we might want and what we can afford.
So if we're gonna take that approach, and I see the wisdom in that, I think there's a little bit more discussion to have here before we wrap it up. Essentially, we would defer this then until we've had that discussion. Because I don't think if we give staff direction, go out and engage the consultant, they essentially don't have their marching orders for that consultant. So we pre-approved something that's undefined. So I would suggest that we're probably headed towards deferring this until we've had that more robust discussion, but I did see a couple of other hands. So I saw Councillor Drayton and Councillor Renault. Go ahead.
so up to $15,000 and bring it back to the committee of the whole. We'll thrash it out there before we bring it to council.
Yeah, so so we're not, what I'm suggesting is that we're not headed towards approving the expenditure of the 15,000 for those drawings right now, because we don't even know quite yet what we want to see on those drawings. So we're gonna have that discussion with staff at the next committee of the whole meeting first.
Back and forth, that's
That's right. And then we will collectively know what the marching orders are for the consultant, and we'll approve the 15,000 at that. Councillor Renault?
Yeah.
I know this isn't what we've been discussing, but they wanted so many bays to get everything under cover. Some of that stuff isn't really used in the winter, but it should be under cover. So why not a coverall like my hay shed coverall, but put ends in it, and then it's out of the weather. And if it had power, if you needed something in there plugged in, that would be fine, because that would be very inexpensive compared to what we, and then just have space for the trucks that you need in there in the winter to be loaded with salt, sand, ready to go, or to work on. So would that lower the, but the staff would have to come back for our discussion, whether that's viable, what that would look like. Do we have the space on site to do that? Blah, blah, blah.
I think that's a prime example of the very type of thing that our CAO would anticipate. We'll end up discussing when we have those two, or if we're lucky, three other examples as a springboard, and some of these ideas. That's all going to go into the pot, and I think we're going to end up with a much better recipe at the end of it. Doing it that way. Councillor Drayton and Councillor Smith.
Yeah, let's cover all of the salt dome that we have now. I don't know how they're doing it this year, but previous years before this, we had two contract snowplows, George Tackleberry's, and they were always parked in the salt dome in the winter time. Between storms, eh?
Yeah.
So probably something like that could work, but I know that they have been in undercover previous years.
Okay, Councillor Smith.
So with regards to the motion, I think no matter what, we do the motion tonight, or we'll wait until we have a discussion and the motion has to come back to get approved at a different date. I don't see the difference. I think the bottom line is either way, we're gonna be going out to a consultant or to an engineer, whoever, to do some drawings, no matter which avenue we go. And all we're trying to do is say, okay, up to $15,000. But I would say if we pass it tonight, it just, and park it, at least we have agreed and approved to go with drawings. But what I'm saying now is that if you hold off and just wait, table this until another meeting, well, it's gonna be another month down the road. That's all I'm saying.
Well, and it's up to council, if you feel comfortable passing the motion, based on the understanding that the staff won't actually pull that trigger.
Until we
Yeah,
give this
until we
approval.
finish that other discussion, that's fair enough. But this is essentially pre-approval, just so that the body understands, and that's fine. Councilor Renault?
But if we decide that we're going with a pre-engineered building, we don't need to pay somebody $15,000 to give us drawings. Quite frankly, that's kind of in the back of my head going, why are we paying somebody for drawings? Why aren't we just going to a contractor and saying, well, can you build them? What will it cost? That's what I do. I don't give them money to tell me. They give me the drawings.
This is one of the differences between the flexibility that you have in the private sector and as a private business owner, and the open way that we have to do business in the public sector. We don't have to like it, but we have to understand that that is a significant difference.
All right, but what if we go with the engineered side, pre-engineered?
So
And-
one thing that I would
Draw.
caution is, yes, the pre-engineering of the building, but for the specific mechanics that are required for a garage, like the oil separators and the drains and all the plumbing and that type of thing, I don't believe that the pre-engineered building manufacturers look after all of that. If any
Okay.
work has to be done in slab,
Yeah.
you still need other experts to deal with that. So we're not going to avoid some expenditure. And we shouldn't lose track of the fact that the two pathways were drawings for a new building and drawings for the retrofit, so that we could
Okay.
understand, okay, well, if a new building really is gonna be $6 million and a retrofit can be done for 3, we need to know and understand that so that we can have a decent conversation around the final decision. Councilor Young.
Well, you can go, and put out a request for proposal. Because a lot of these general contractors have on staff architects, engineers, electrical engineers. A lot of your car dealerships are just that.
Mhm.
They have oil separators, they got everything you can think of in them. But I suppose what we need to figure out is if we want to go with a pre-engineered style building, we could inform whatever engineer firm that we talk to. We could inform them that we would like to look at pre-engineered buildings. And this is what we want in it.
Right.
Yeah, as an option.
Because most general contractors can deal with multiple pre-engineered building manufacturers.
Garcia.
Thank you, Your Worship. Even if we go through the pre-engineered, still don't know what you want, how big you want, how much you want. So that's the intent of having the conversation with council. Yes, we can be directed to go look at pre-engineered buildings, but how big, how many bays, what else do you want in it? We still haven't answered those questions. So until we get that going to even a pre-engineering company, they're gonna ask us those questions right off the bat, and we're not gonna have the answers.
So I think fundamentally tonight, all we have to resolve is, are we comfortable going ahead and passing the motion tonight with the understanding that our CAO is basically gonna hold on to and our treasurer hold on to the purse strings? And this is not a directive to go out tomorrow and engage that consultant. And so all we're doing is getting that approval out of the way with the understanding there still is that robust discussion to have. And then we'll go out and actually get the work done. That's one option, or we defer it.
I say defer.
Okay, to our CAO.
Just very briefly, Your Worship, and I think that conversation will be good to know whether you really do want to renovate the building, because what we've embedded in this is 2 options: renovate or build new. And if what we come to the conclusion is that maybe we don't want to renovate, that frees up some of the money to actually do more with that, or make sure that we spend less.
Okay, Councilor Brayton, and then I'll go ahead and
Yeah,
deal with
thank you.
this.
Well, I don't think there's, if I recall, I don't think there's been a quart of paint or a light bulb put in it. There might have been a light bulb, but I know there wasn't a quart of paint put on that building in 20 years. So I don't think there's a big hurry to do it tomorrow, or just because we're thinking of it today. I think that we better think this out, because there's going to be a lot of money involved.
All right, so I'm getting the sense maybe that there's more appetite for deferral. So I need a motion then to defer this until after a wants and needs discussion. Okay, fair enough. So Councillor Olstroff, you're prepared to move that? Okay, seconder. Okay, well, Councillor Brayton had it up there, so seconded by Councillor Brayton. Any further discussion on deferring? Councillor Downey?
Not on deferring, but on the meetings that we end up having with staff. I'm wondering too, if we shouldn't assemble on site and review some of this stuff with staff, so everybody can see for themselves before they, you know, what the thing it looks like compared to the 2019 report. If there's any room to put a new building, where to put an addition, how they plan to back new trucks in, drive through, whatever they're gonna do.
Do you see any difficulty with that, Mr. Nolan?
No, your worship, I don't, and I think that's probably, we were sort of trying to plan to do that, I think, as well, because I think it's important for council to actually see what that building looks like in the current state of it and the conditions that staff are working in, which, okay, on a hot day like this, probably not great. In the middle of winter, definitely not great. You know, we've ended up having to replace furnaces, and there are other concerns about the building structure itself. So I think it would be great for council to see.
Okay, I saw a couple of hands and then we'll get to this. So Councillor Olstroff, Councillor Brayton.
Just to add to that, I really think that's, to me, really good idea. Like, I like to see pylons. I mean, how big is that lot there? Is it 3 acres or 13? Like, I don't know. Is it gonna change the whole dynamics of the building? Are we going back 200 feet? Do we got a lot more space? What are pylons on an 8-bay building and pylons marked a 12-bay building? It gives. I mean, staff has to do some plan, but then they got it, because there's gonna be a lot of details. The staff will decide. It's gonna be a 30-foot door and so much per bay, you know, whether it's, but they gotta put some particulars down. But I like seeing what we're mentioning here, a bit of size and scale on site.
Okay, Councillor Brayton.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. So Dan, you're talking about going to see the turkey before we shoot it.
Yeah. That's
Right?
one way to
Yeah,
say it.
like, well,
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good idea.
All right, so I'm gonna call the question then on deferring this expenditure or this motion until after we've had that discussion. All those in favor? Okay, that carries. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the next motion that came out of the committee of the whole. It is the council direct staff to proceed with obtaining quotes to salvage the pavilion at the Lynn Park, as discussed under report B 25-08 during the June 16th, 2025 committee of the whole meeting. The mover and seconder for that, please. Moved by Councillor Renault, seconded by Councillor Smith. Any discussion on this one? Councillor Smith?
Just the verbiage, is the word salvage that the correct word to use?
Well, yeah, if we're hoping to get this done free or cheaper than demolition, where the materials will actually be taken away,
Okay.
is salvaging the
Okay.
materials.
All right.
So, all right, yeah,
Just clarify.
yeah, it's not underwater or
Okay.
anything like that. Any other discussion? Councillor Renault?
Well, in salvaging it, it also has another benefit to the township in that it is not in our landfill. And it's recycling, reuse. 3 R.
Yep. Reduce, reuse, recycle.
That's it. I knew there was 3 Rs.
Yep.
But, and we should be doing anything.
All righty, so all those in favor? That carries, thank you. Okay, bear with me, another motion coming out of those minutes. The council award the tender to Sittler Grinding Inc. in the amount of $68,044 plus HST as presented in report PW 25-17 during the June 16th, 2025 committee of the whole meeting. This quote includes the grinding of construction and demolition waste, brush and yard waste to be used as cover, and grinding of all bulky items to be disposed of in the active landfill cell. And the council directs staff to conduct a comprehensive review of the township's landfill operations and prepare a report evaluating the feasibility and implications of discontinuing the acceptance of commercial waste, recycling, and large bulky materials, such as construction debris and upholstered items that require grinding or specialized processing. So that is the motion. If I can get a mover and seconder, moved by Councillor Brayton, seconded by Councillor Smith. Discussion, if any? Okay, I saw Councillor Brayton, Councillor Dent. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. CAO, have you heard anything about this company that's going, does the grinding?
Sorry, through your worship, have I personally heard anything about
Yeah,
that? No.
okay. Well, I heard through a grapevine yesterday that they're in financial problems. I don't know if true or not.
Well, we probably shouldn't deal in
No, that's
speculation.
right, yeah.
I believe this is and staff may be able to correct me if I'm wrong, I believe this is the company that we had do one lot of grinding already, so they're not completely unfamiliar to us. And I believe we were very happy with the output from that grinding effort. I know the staff at the waste site said that the material was easy to work with, unlike previous grinding experiences where there were large chunks of things to deal with. So that's the only thing that I can contribute. Councillor Renault. Oh, sorry, Councillor Downey first, then Councillor.
So there was a $16,000 difference, I believe, from what was budgeted from, so. Is there somewhere that we can find that 16,000 for this particular overrun, or is that something that we could? Wash out within the dump budget?
There's a reason they call it estimates. I would suggest perhaps waiting until later in the year, perhaps there can be savings found in other areas before we make a determination that we need to find the revenue somewhere.
Before or after September 26th?
Then it becomes not my problem, no. No, I just, the amount. I feel like there's probably room between the waste and recycling budgets
Yeah.
that could be found. If not, then council will have to cross that bridge. You're aware that there's a bit of an overage there. Staff are aware, they'll work toward trying to mitigate that before the end of the year.
And part of the reason that the number is a little bit larger than we estimated is that we waited, didn't grind, and there's more volume of stuff to deal with than we anticipated, so it's well, not exactly, it's a kind of there's no good answer. Councillor Merrill, you have your hand up.
Yes, I did, and you kind of skimmed over it in your motions about large furniture type stuff. Can you kind of explain to people that may not have been on last week to hear the discussion on exactly what that, because you said it so quickly.
Well, it's part of the motion that was prepared, but yeah, I guess the best way that I can synopsize it is that the landfill is a finite asset. It only has a certain lifespan yet. We've been fortunate over the years to make changes to the operation diversion of recyclables, a heavier packer that has sort of bought back some of that time. But staff have identified that these construction materials and the bulky items like couches and recliners and that type of thing are starting to account for a disproportionate amount of the volume that's being used up in the landfill. There are other outlets that are available to the public to deal with that. The transfer depot waste management on California Avenue is one. I believe there's an option in Smith Falls for some of this material as well. So part of this motion is to direct staff to do a comprehensive review of that and come back to us with pros and cons of continuing on and raising the fees to accommodate being able to continue providing the service, or closing down that aspect of our service so that residents would have to go to either Brockville or Smith Falls to the industrial transfer stations that are prepared to deal with it. And the pro for that, or the value of doing that, would be a much longer lifespan of our existing asset, which I can tell you is way cheaper to operate than the day we have to close it and start hauling garbage out of the municipality. So does that satisfy you in terms of a sort of a thumbnail sketch?
Because the way you said it.
Yeah.
It would have left people thinking, oh, I gotta find somewhere to go with.
Yeah, not yet, but
So-
maybe in the future, depending.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure they understood the discussion we had last week.
All right. Anybody else? Okay, I'll go ahead and call the question then. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you. The next motion is the council approves the Public Works Department's phased approach to upgrading township-owned dead-end roads beginning in 2025 to include proper turnaround areas and drainage improvements as presented in report PW 25-20 during the June 16th, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting. So can I get a mover and seconder for that, please? Moved by Councilor Renault, seconded by Councilor Osterhoff. Discussion around this item, if any? Councilor Brayton?
Was was that the turnarounds, or that for our own trucks or?
Yes, primarily for winter control operations. And we're gonna try and do this work within the existing right of way that we already own. And in a minimal impact fashion, so typically a hammerhead turnaround rather than a big loop that takes a lot more
Yeah.
room than that. Of
Oh, I just, I hope that there's not transports going down there, tractor trailers turning around that we're building up for that.
No, this is for our own purposes and for safe operations. Anybody else? Okay, I'll call a question on that then. All those in favor? That carries, thank you. Next one is the council authorized staff to initiate procurement utilizing the Canoe Procurement Group of Canada and negotiate the purchase of the used wheel loader with the town of Gananoque. And the council directs staff to prepare a summary report for the purchase of the new backhoe and used wheel loader for approval at the July 14th regular council meeting as presented in report PW 25-21 during the June 16th, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting. So if I have a mover and seconder to get that one on the floor, moved by Councilor Smith, seconded by Councilor Downey. Discussion around this one, if any. Okay, I'll go ahead and call it then. All those in favor, Councilor Ray.
I would like that's to buy, purchase, right?
Yes, it's to initiate the procurement utilizing the Canoe Central Procurement Group for a used wheel loader from the town of Gananoque. And then to prepare a summary report on how all of this is going to work out for the purchase of a new backhoe as well as that wheel loader.
Okay, I would like them to look into lease to purchase
For the backhoe?
the backhoe and the loader.
I don't think they'll be able to lease to purchase the used backhoe from town of Gananoque. I don't think there's any third party that will take that on.
No, but do we have to get it from Gananoque?
No, but if we don't, then we don't open up the room in the budget to be able to put towards the lease payments. Possibly of a new backhoe. So this is to be able to get two pieces of useful equipment. More or less within the budget that we've already set. If you want a new wheel loader, that's what's in the budget and there's no room for a new backhoe.
For example, here's the way to go.
Okay. Well, that's fair. Anybody else? Councilor Smith?
Maybe just for clarification, so that the wheel loader from the town of Gananoque is used.
Yeah.
And we were going out to purchase a new backhoe.
That's what the proposal is. So it says direct staff to prepare a summary report for the purchase of a new backhoe and the used wheel loader for approval at our next council meeting.
Finance it or lease to own through.
That's where Councilor Brayton's getting with the new backhoe.
But I just asked for that clarification and he would also like a new wheel loader rather than going with the used one from Gananoque. That was the question I just asked and the answer, and that's fair. That's his right to feel that, right? I'm not so sure that represents the consensus, but.
Well, I bought a lot of used equipment and I bought a lot of new equipment, and the new equipment is hands down ahead of the used stuff.
Yep. I don't disagree. Anybody else on this? Okay, everybody clear on what the motion is though? Okay, I'll go ahead and call the question then. All those in favor? And opposed if any? Okay, duly noted, that does carry. Okay, and the last motion coming out of the committee of the whole is as follows. The council requests the following of the United Counties of Leeds Grenville. Implement a no parking zone adjacent to the Jasper Hotel property on County Road 16 near the intersection of County Road 17. And consider installation of vertical traffic calming bollards in the 50 km/h zone on County Road 16. and consider installation of a three-way stop at the intersection of County Road 16 and County Road 17 as recommended during the June 16, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting. The mover and seconder for that, moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Renault. Any discussion on this item? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed if any? Okay, that carries.
So when's that gonna go to county?
What's that?
When's that going to the county?
So now this will be forwarded on and our next,
July?
it might make it to the July Committee of the Whole meeting. If not, it may just go directly to the council meeting and get referred back to staff. But one way or another, it'll get out within in July, at least the first step of the journey.
You got your work cut out for you now.
Yeah.
Get her done.
Yep. Councilor Hop?
From the committee of the whole meeting, was there something we're supposed to discuss about the line 9?
Not at this meeting.
Okay.
No, I can tell you just briefly, I was gonna do this in the information items, but since you asked, and it comes out of the committee minutes. I did participate in a meeting today with RBCA and our manager of public works and our CAO. I felt that even the initial part of the meeting was fruitful. And I was speaking with our public works manager afterwards. I only stayed on for a certain section of the call. And once the political component ran its course, staff were left on the call, and by all accounts, there seems to be a good understanding of why we were shocked and why we want to look at some alternatives. There seems to be a willingness to look at some alternative. I won't sugarcoat it. I just can't see a path to get us down to like $100,000 project, but to get it down from where it is, I think there's reason to expect that we'll shave some more off that budget yet and arrive at a consensus, which is, here's the definition of a consensus. It's a decision nobody likes, but everybody can live with. So I think that's where we're ultimately going to get. Councilor Brayton.
We want to do it in-house?
Well, those are all the things that we'll hear later on. This was just, I just wanted to let you know, we did set up that meeting with Rideau Valley Conservation the way that the council had asked. So that just took place this morning. So let's let the ink dry on that a little bit, and we will be getting a report back before we make any further decisions on that project.
Thanks.
Yep. Okay, so that takes us through our. I got my right agenda. Yes, okay, so now we're on the staff reports. 7.1.
Good night.
Night, Christine. Item 7.1, this is a report regarding amendments to our procedural bylaw. The motion is that report number A-25-28 be received, and that bylaw 25-18 being a bylaw to govern the proceedings of council and its committees, the code of conduct of its members, the calling of meetings, and to repeal bylaw 22-44 be adopted. So a mover and seconder for that, please. Moved by Councillor Osterhoff, seconded by Councillor Renault. Anything you wish to add, Madam Deputy?
Not at this time.
Okay, so discussion, if any. This basically brings together all the various individual little chunks that we've done over a period of time. Councillor Downey?
So does this have to do with the strong merit powers legislation that was passed?
Not really, but yes. So it initially had to do with everything else. For instance, incorporating roll call, defining what quorum is. There were a whole bunch of other things that council had dealt with. And because we're also dealing now with strong mayor powers, that's been added on. There are a couple of items that were talked about in the report. So I don't want people having the impression that this is as a result of the strong mayor powers. In fact, this would have come forward even if strong mayor powers hadn't existed.
Right, but that was added in.
Yeah, the two little things that we need to add in at this point are there. Madam
I was
Deputy?
just gonna say, through your worship, on page 1 of the report. Under discussion items, number 1, general F and G, those are a result of the strong mayor powers. The rest of it is based on amendments that council has passed.
Yeah, so those two items basically say respectively, section F says if anything in our procedure bylaws conflicts with the regulations around strong mayor powers, the strong mayor powers have to prevail. We have no choice anyway. And section G simply reflects the mechanics of that 2-day delay around the opportunity to veto bylaws. So
Okay.
it sets in ink the realities, that's all.
I think I understand that part of it, but at one point we did pass, I think it was a resolution to voice our, we wanted to decline.
Yeah.
I forget what the wording was, but is that still our position? And we basically are just dealing with what we have to deal with? I don't quite understand that part of it.
Yeah, so you're right, that was council's position, and I did draft a letter, which was included in a recent meeting. I'm not sure whether it was reviewed maybe when you were away on vacation, think so. So I'll make sure you get a copy of that, but there was a draft letter that expressed to the province that we wish, our position was to decline them. And rather than taking a combative approach, we're taking a more collaborative approach that, we don't want them. We would much rather collaborate with the province on solving the real problems that we have, because we don't think this is it. Notwithstanding that that's our position, we also have to deal with the realities that you can't expect me to break the law. And I know you don't.
Okay.
So that's only as far as, we're only taking it as far as we have to. Okay, anything else, Councillor Minot?
So this document basically just makes it easy for staff to make sure we're on track with everything we've passed. Put it all in one place, instead of having to go back 6 months or 6 years and try and find it all, it's all right here.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
And we
Okay,
should review it every year, because we add, or every other year, because we add to it all the time.
okay, anybody else? Okay, I'll go call the question then. All those in favor? That carries, thank you. Okay, moving on to committee meetings, committee minutes. I think we have, yeah, 2 sets, okay. So the motion is that the following draft committee minutes be received. The Lynn Banshell Ad Hoc Committee draft minutes dated June 10th, 2025. The Planning Advisory Committee draft minutes dated June 19th, 2025. Do I have a mover and seconder for those, please? Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Brady. Are there any comments, questions, or concerns with regards to either of those sets of minutes? Councillor Renaud.
You're gonna have a car wash and a barbecue. Do you have a location and a time or?
No.
Councillor Burnett.
Through to Councillor, no, well, there is no set date or time. There just be a investigation this time, until we can figure out, tomorrow we're having a meeting, which would be part of our fundraising focus tomorrow. We have a couple of locations of a car wash / barbecue, but there's been no date set or anything based on our committee.
So if I just showed up at your house tonight, you give me a barbecue and car wash.
Well, I'll feed you.
But I won't clean your car.
Had me clean my own. The rain on the weekend.
Yeah. All right, Councillor Ostrov, did I see your hand go up for?
Well, you did, and we just went back and plan. Looked at my agenda here, because didn't have the draft minutes from the planning committee.
Madam
For your
Deputy,
worship, to Councillor Israel, if you re-download it, so when it was released to council on Thursday, the minutes were not attached because they were Friday. But it's time sensitive, so
Yeah.
they were attached on Friday and then I re-released it to council and hit notify and then to the public. So if you re-download it, the minutes should be.
So just sign it and go back in.
Thank you. I was at the meeting. The planning advisory committee, so I'm aware of what it was, and I was on holidays until 4 o'clock this afternoon. So that's why I'm late at doing that,
No worries.
but I'm aware of what's on that agenda.
okay,
For
good.
the minutes.
All right, good. Okay. One final call. Any other comments or questions regarding either of these minutes? Okay, all those in favor of receiving those? That carries, thank you. All right, from the Lynn Banshell minutes, we have the following motion. Sorry, Councillor Downing.
Something just clicked, and I'm not sure what Councillor Oosterhoff mentioned. Was there the ploy subdivision?
That's
There was, is that what we're
It's in minutes.
It's in the minutes, so the fact that we passed it. Basically, I thought council had to look at that.
Madam Deputy,
Through you, worship, to Councillor Downey, you just accepted, we received the draft minutes. After this resolution, there will be 2 more motions that are coming in. So you haven't passed anything.
Okay, so that's fine.
Yeah.
Receive the draft minutes.
Yeah, they were hoping we could do that tonight.
yeah, so there's one motion coming out of the Lynn Banshell minutes. And then I think there's at least, there's 2 motions coming out of the PAC minutes. And one of them deals with the subdivision you're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so the one coming out of the Lynn Banshell minutes is the council approves the design option E for the Cheryl Mitchell Memorial Bandshell. And the council directs staff to investigate electrical work and other design elements as the Lynn Bandshell committee discussed. A mover and seconder for that, moved by Councillor Smith. And I can get a seconder, seconded by Councillor Renault. Anything further to add, Councillor Smith?
No, that's fine. I don't think the staff's been given the direction to incorporate that.
Okay, all right, anybody have any questions or discussion around this? Okay, I'll call that then. All those in favor? That carries, thank you. Moving on to the PAC minutes. Now, the first motion is the council approves deferring of zoning bylaw amendment Z-01-25, 3817 County Road 29, concession 2, part lot 6, geographic Elizabethtown, owner of Pluie, as detailed in the minutes on pages 1 and 2. Is that correct?
Yes.
On County 20? On County 29?
46.
26 is the-
Put it on the wrong. I just copied and pasted it instead of the.
Okay,
I'm trying to bring that up.
That's why that-
yeah. I believe that should be 26.
So we're-
Well, here it says 26 and body.
Okay. Yeah, so that seems correct. 3817 County Road 26, concession 2, part lot 6. Okay, so I'll read that again just so there's no confusion. The council approves deferring of zoning bylaw amendment Z-01-25 regarding 3817 County Road 26, concession 2, part lot 6, geographic Elizabethtown, owner of Pluie, as detailed in the minutes on pages 1 and 2. So I need a mover and seconder for that. It's moved by Councillor Renault, seconded by Councillor Den. So any discussion on this item? Councillor Smith?
Just so clarity, that's okay, so I read the minutes. I have in front of me, I have the resolution 003-23. Is that the second one coming up?
Yeah, there's another one coming up. Regarding official plan amendment.
Yeah.
That's right, plus the return to the conservation authority.
No, the operative clause is pretty simple, just to approve the official plan amendment. So I believe that's the reason for deferring the zoning amendment, is to deal with some of those outstanding issues.
Okay, so can I just read what it says so you can clarify?
Yep.
Speaking what I'm reading, so it says, that PAC recommends the council pass the bylaw adopt official plan amendment number 7, the official plan for the Township of Elizabethtown-Kitley to permit the proposed development of a residential plan subdivision. The PAC recommends the council to further passage of the zoning draft zoning bylaw amendment Z-01-25 until concerns of Cataract Conservation Regional Authority have been addressed.
Right.
Is that what that motion is?
Yeah, so this is the deferral of the zoning,
Okay,
and the next one is the approval of the OP amendment 7.
Reversed.
Yeah, just it happens to be reversed from the.
Yeah.
So it looks like and if you would prefer, I don't think we've actually got that motion on the floor. If you prefer to deal with them in the opposite order, that's
no, I know, I'm just asked.
I think we're gonna get to the same finish line. It's just a case of whether we turn left or turn right first.
Okay, yeah.
So Madam Deputy, did we actually have a mover and seconder at this point?
Sorry, I brought up, I was looking at the cover sheet. No.
Okay. All right, so given that the cover sheet for the PAC minutes. Yeah, the cover sheet actually deals with the zoning first, so let's leave them in this order. So the motion is the council approves deferring of the zoning bylaw. That's the one we're gonna deal with first. Okay, regarding that property 3817 County Road 26. owner of Fluey as detailed in the minutes on pages 1 and 2, right? So this is the deferral of the zoning to allow dealing with the CRCA. Okay, so I need a mover and seconder to get that on the floor. So moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Osterhoff. Any discussion beyond what we've already had?
Just
Councillor Osterhoff?
we defer it, but do we have to do it again? But if tomorrow or next week, the Cataraqui Region Authority have their concerns addressed, does that mean it's approved?
No, we're not passing it conditional upon CRCA providing favorable comments. We're just deferring it. I think that's what we have to do towards CAO.
Okay,
Yes, Your Worship, you need to defer it so that it will come back and then you have to approve it at some point or we'll deny it, so.
the applicants were pretty confident they were halfway there.
Yeah.
It's gonna go.
Well, and given our schedule, if there was some justification, we've got a committee of the whole coming up on July 7th. We could do a special council meeting to do that, or 1 week after that, we've already got a regular council meeting for July. So I think we're okay time wise at this point. All right, any other discussion on this item? Okay, I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Okay, that carries. Thank you. And the second motion regarding this property.
You'll have to correct the 29 to 26 again, because I took it.
Yes, yeah. All right, so the next motion is the council approves the official plan amendment number 7 regarding 3817 County Road 26, concession 2, part lot 6, geographic Elizabethtown, owner of Pluie, as detailed in the minutes on pages 1 and 2. I'm looking for a mover and seconder for that, please. Moved by Councillor Osterhoff, seconded by Councillor Widow. Any discussion around this item? Okay, all those in favor? That carries, thank you. Right, moving along, I think we're on bylaws next, yes. So the motion is that the mover be granted leave to introduce bylaw number 25-18, being a bylaw to govern the proceedings of council and its committees, the conduct of its committee members, the calling of meetings, and to repeal bylaw 22-44. And bylaw 2537, being a bylaw to adopt official plan amendment number 7 to the official plan of the Township of Elizabethtown-Kitley, and this shall constitute the first and second reading thereof. The mover and seconder for that, please. Moved by Councillor Osterhoff, seconded by Councillor Smith. Any discussion around these bylaws? Okay, all those in favor? That carries, thank you. We have third reading for those same two. Before I read the motion, does anybody want those separated? Okay. So the motion is that bylaws number 25-18 and 25-37 be given third reading and finally passed, signed, and numbered accordingly. Mover and seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Renault, seconded by Councillor Smith. All those in favor? That carries. Did you have a question, Councillor Baker, or you were just voting?
I just vote.
Yeah, okay.
Just let us know.
No, actually, you were a little bit fast. That's why I wondered if you were wanting to get in there before we voted on those. Correspondence, we have one item here. The motion is that correspondence, item 1 be received and filed. Could I get a mover and seconder for that, please? Moved by Councillor Brayton, seconded by Councillor Downing. Very nice of Sylvia to send us a nice little thank you note, and I'm glad that collectively, and especially Councillor Smith, managed to pull that off as a surprise. I think that was quite a coup. All right, I'll call that question then. All those in favor? That carries, thank you. Okay, moving on, I believe information items is next. Does anybody have an information item to share with us this evening? Councillor Osterhoff? Yeah,
Question?
yeah.
Earlier in the spring, when we were doing budgeting and stuff, there was some discussion of maybe a group tour of some of our parks and recreation areas.
Yep.
Is that still on our radar?
I believe so. I believe our
Hoping it's
CAO.
not over the next month.
Yeah.
I'm just saying maybe September, but.
Right, so the information that you're providing is please don't do it over the summer. To our CAO.
Yeah.
Your thoughts
Start
on
with questions.
scheduling?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, certainly we can make sure that it's later into the fall, and I think, given how busy the recreation department is, with making sure that our facilities are up to speed and we've got swimming programs running, I think it probably would be advantageous for them to also make sure that they're working on those things this summer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, very good. Councillor
Well,
Bell?
since we're on question,
Yeah, no, apparently.
apparently,
What's your information?
Yeah, I was gonna say, as long as you can phrase your question as an information item.
Okay, I can.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, so on Friday,
Yes.
when I went to the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority's tour. Where I met with the roads planner as well. They did a presentation on green, blue, and what was the other color of roof? Anyhow, I thought it was the paint color on the roof. But no, it's different ways. For the environment, so a blue roof is on water. And the version of it, but anyway, when they were all done, I thought, whoa. What a great thing that we should be having them do a presentation to our planning committee. And developers that want to do a plan like this Pooley plan. Because it reduces your size of your stormwater. Because of course now you're catching all the rainwater off and you're doing a water garden, that sort of, but just, or putting in permeable driveways or permeable sidewalks, whatever. I just thought it might be something that would be worthwhile for our planning department to hear. And definitely information to be given to anybody wanting to do a subdivision.
Interesting.
I thought so.
Thanks for sharing that. Our CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was gonna mention something else, but do you want a green roof on the new public works facility? I'm joking.
We should divert the water away from the building at the very least.
We've talked about it a couple of times about having a committee of the whole meeting on the 7th of July, but I'm not sure all of council has been involved in that decision. Did we?
I thought we had socialized it at the last committee meeting, but I could be wrong.
I could have missed that. We did, so you're already for a committee of the whole meeting on July 7th.
Is everybody okay for that?
I'm me, but I'm there.
You can use up one of your 4 virtual slots if you want.
It's a committee member thing, so it does not count.
Oh.
Just saying, I'm looking out for you there, Rob. Looking out for you.
You seem to violate now, don't you?
It's a committee meeting, so it doesn't count for one of your 4 council meetings.
Oh,
Yes, and
Is that a Monday?
so,
that a Monday?
yeah, it's next Monday.
2 weeks.
Sorry, 2 weeks. I'm sorry. Yeah, 2 weeks from now. The reason for that was if you think that we went long and late last Monday at our committee of the whole meeting, there were like 5 more agenda
Yeah,
items.
the Monday, yeah. Monday, yeah.
So this will also get us back into the first Monday time slot. It fixes up the tumble. There were a number of reasons to look at.
That's a Saturday, right? Like that?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay,
yeah,
yeah.
7th. All right, anything else to share? Okay, we'll move on then from information items. So motions and notices of motion. Does any member have a notice of motion this evening? Okay, not seeing any. Public question period. We don't have any members of the public with us in the chambers today. Did we receive anything online, Madam Deputy? Okay,
Just a small informational item, so as we know, we started the new microservicing road construction project, so just an FYI, Howe Road is done. So if you wanna take a drive on it and I don't know if it's completely done, but it's okay, because the reason why I'm saying is because I have received calls. And so I did drive on it today myself, and I'll say right now, it's a lot smoother than it was. So if it's not completely done, well, it'll be great to see when it's all done. But anyways, just an FYI, it's already started.
okay, great. Your CAO.
Yes, through your worship, some of the preliminary leveling of the surface has been done, but Miller is yet to go out and do the microsurfacing, and we'll be doing that in a few weeks.
Okay.
What was it like?
So this is like a paint job. This is all the prep work that's going on at this point.
Yeah, it's actually, yeah, so filling in basically all the holes, all the divots and everything else, and rutting and everything else before the final top goes on.
Yeah, really, this is only reestablishing the profile and securing the base for the surface treatment. That's what's.
Oh, better 29.
Yes.
They were in
yeah,
Frankfurt
it
as
is.
well too. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah,
All of my baler, all that.
Oh,
sorry.
Oh, I forgot, I should have brought it up.
All right, before we get off the rails here. All right, so we're finished with public question period that weren't any. And people have already exhausted information items for asking their questions here, so we'll move on to the closed meeting. The motion is that the regular council meeting adjourn at 8:54 PM for a closed meeting regarding one matter under section 239 subsection 2B of the Municipal Act, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, specifically Committee of Adjustment applications. And one matter under section 239 subsection 2K of the Municipal Act, a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board, specifically a contract proposal regarding Kitley waste collection. So could I get a mover and seconder to move into close, please? Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Brayton. All those in favor? That carries. Now, we'll have our closed meeting. There's only the confirmatory bylaw, sorry, the reporting out and confirmatory bylaw to deal with. So we'll end our live stream and we will report out into the minutes.